Welcome to the Beyond Bound Coach and AD Professional Development Series, a weekly online professional development for athletic administrators and coaches. Join us as 6 former ADs now employed by Bound and with over 100 years of combined experience discuss topics important and beneficial to ADs and coaches. Join us on this journey of professional growth. We're here to help you take your coaching and athletic administration to the next level and beyond.
Just a reminder, Beyond Bound is for ADs and coaches and by ADs and coaches. A group of us athletic directors and former athletic directors we meet every week and we bring out a leadership topic of some sort. We share it, kick it around, all for your good as viewers, hoping maybe there's a little something in here that you could use to improve your job as an athletic director, coach, or just a leader in your community. So today's topic is, do you pay a price if you are a leader? The cost of leadership, is that a myth or is that a reality? There's a lot of discussion out there when you become a leader with the pressures and the things that can go on. And so do you pay a price if you're a leader or not? I want to share a few things from Kirby Smart. He put out a video, or maybe it was just an interview at one time, and there were a couple points he made about the cost of leadership that I think were pretty valuable things to think about. I'm going to share those as well as a few other possible costs of leadership. And then we're going to talk about how you counteract those costs. So the first thing that Kirby said was, as a leader, you're going to have to make hard decisions that will negatively affect people you care about. And this is so true. I vividly remember when I started coaching, I was a little worried because I knew someday I was going to coach the kids of some of my best friends, people that I had hung around with for a long time, played a lot of softball with, and I thought, oh boy, somewhere along the line, I'm going to have to make a decision with one of these kids, and how is my friend or friends going to react when I have to make that decision? So sometimes those things will happen. As a leader, you will be disliked despite your best attempt to do the best for the most. I think all leaders, deep down, that's what they're trying to do, is do the best for the most. And yet that's not always good enough for everyone. It's not what everyone wants. Everybody's opinion is different. So sometimes you can be disliked even though you're doing your best. And you will be misunderstood and not always have the opportunity to defend yourself. There is no question that leaders are misunderstood by some people. That's just the nature of people. They might look at things always from a negative viewpoint and perhaps always put a leader in a negative light just based on how they look at life. And yet you can't always defend yourself because you're out there in the public, maybe coaching a game, running a track meet, leading your business, leading a group of teachers, and you just keep rolling along and you don't always have that chance to defend yourself. Other costs. There can be an impact on your family and your loved ones. Sometimes that's just an impact of being gone a lot, putting in a lot of hours. Could be an impact of, your family members hear people say negative things about you as a leader, and that hurts them. So there can be some impact on your family and loved ones. Another cost is the mental and emotional toll. There can be stress, burnout, loneliness. These are very common amongst leaders. I think in any industry, you will see a certain amount of that. And then there's the constant pursuit of excellence and handling failure. A good leader is always trying to pursue excellence. And the old saying, it's easy to rise to the top, but it's harder to stay there. And so that pressure of pursuing excellence is there all the time. And yet along the way, you're going to hit some bumps in the road and you're going to have failure. The old saying of, for every mile on the road to success, there's 2 miles of ditches. It's very true. You're going to be in the ditch sometimes, and you got to get out of the ditch and keep pursuing and learn how to handle that failure. So these are the costs. What are some things we can do to counteract that? Well, just to throw out a few here, build a strong support system. Friends, colleagues, mentors, family. Get a group of people that you trust, that, can be a sounding board for you at all times. Focus on the positive, good that you're doing for others. After all, that's why you are in a leadership position, trying to do good for others. Manage yourself. Do not neglect your physical, mental, or emotional well-being. The Todd Gordon line of lead yourself comes to mind here. Be purpose-driven. Don't lose sight of your why. After all, your why is why you are a leader. Delegate what you can. Sometimes there's things you can get other people to help you with. You need to do that to take the pressure off. Avoid social media naysayers. Perhaps avoid social media altogether. So those are some of the strategies to counteract the cost. Pardon me. Do your best to control and minimize the cost of leadership. All right, gentlemen, discussion here. Aaron Stecker.
Great topic, but I'm going to say also kind of a topic that really cuts to, an awful lot of just personal things for me. I know it probably does for everybody else in here as well. One thing I would throw out there to think about, because here's the thing, every one of those things you talked about is true in both things. On that, as you were going through the list of the costs of leadership, every one of those things happened with me in my role as an athletic administrator over 16 years. And those were all the things that I had to keep bringing myself back to, or I had to have my strong support system bring me back to and remind me, hey, take care of yourself. You've got people who love you and care about you. Remember why you're doing what you're doing. So all those things are true. One of the moves I think is super difficult that people don't think about, and I've given this advice to several people. If you are currently a teacher and a coach in a building pursuing athletic administration, and you want to be the AD in the school you've been a coach and a teacher in for quite a while, that's a tough move. And it's a move I made and transitioned it. I was at Kennedy High School for 8 years before, as a teacher and a coach, before I jumped over to being an AD. And it was an immediate flip. As soon as I took the job as an AD, people who I had been good friends with and the people I'd coached with, here's the deal. You go from being the person who's in the coach's locker room kind of talking smack about the AD to now you're the person they're talking smack about. And it happens in a matter of one day. From June 30 to July 1, you're now the person they're talking smack about, and you're their supervisor. And those relationships change, and they can be very tight relationships with your coaching friends. But it's now different because you need to be ready for that and know how you're going to take that on and then still keep fostering those relationships. I'm not saying they weren't still my friends, but it was different, and you need to be ready for that. If you've got kids, I want to touch on the one you talked about, the impact of family and loved ones. You need to be open and honest and have great conversations with your kids about, here's things you're going to hear about me. Here's things, if I give a good conduct violation to somebody because of a poor choice they made, it's going to come back on you in some way, shape, or form. You need to be ready for it and talk about those things and just be open with family on that, because it's going to happen. So I'd say this: if you ever want to be the house that all the kids hang out with, like when your kids are going through high school and you want your house to be the hangout house, don't be an AD, because it'll never happen. At least not in my experience. And that, so they're just things you need to think about and know going into it, and then be ready to manage. And with that, I'll pass on to the next AD.
Yeah, those are excellent points. Kind of went through that same transition in my career as well, Aaron, and I feel exactly what you said. Brian.
Yeah, no, as Aaron said, Mark, this is a really cool topic, and I loved, I saw that tweet, or I saw it somewhere, where he was talking about that, or was a videotape of there's a cost for leadership. And as a coach, you feel some of this. But if you have a good AD, you have a good principal, you're not going to feel the full brunt of what you talked about. I felt a lot more of what you said as an athletic administrator, but I'd say as a head coach, I still felt some of that too. I wrote down a bunch, so I'm going to go really quick here. But you talked about number one, it's not going to be the best thing for your family, for you, and for your friends. So you talked about that, and I always had to keep that in the forefront of my mind. And I've seen leaders that they will make decisions that are best for them or their family or for their friends. And that's disastrous in the long run. I mean, it might be great in the short term, but it's disastrous in the long run. And so you just have to be prepared for that. Right before I got my job, a longtime AD that I knew really well said, Brian, if you can follow 80-20, and I'm 80-20, and he said, put out 80% of the fires every day, keep 80% of your people happy every day, you're doing better than everyone else. He goes, that was always, but he wanted me to know there's always 20. There's always going to be 20. And that was hard for me to hear because we all want to be liked. And lastly, one of the things that I really took to heart was I always wanted to take losing well. I was probably one of those kids that threw my controller playing Xbox or PlayStation when I was a kid. I was not a good loser. And I, what is a good loser, I guess. But over the years, I wanted to show strength to our kids and our coaches, because one thing I learned over 20 years, you always lose. You always lose when you don't expect it. That's going to happen. One time it's going to happen at least. And it happened every year for me. So that was super hard. When you went into talking about some of the suggestions, I think having a good leadership team with you feels very, very good. If you have other leaders in your building that are on the same team, principal, superintendent, assistant ADs, man, does that help a lot. And then last thing, and I say this probably every week now, just make sure your identity is not in being an AD, because that winning and losing will get to you. And so your identity needs to be in people. It can be a lot of different things, but relationships needs to be a forefront of that, how you treat everybody around you, those types of things. So, that was a lot, but thanks, Mark. That was a really, really cool topic.
Good points. I like the leadership team concept. That's comforting, I think. That would be my word. Scott Jarvis, What you got today?
Well, Mark, this was awesome. The one thing that really hit me is just that mental and emotional strain. And I can tell you there's times in my career where I was just like, I don't think I can do this. And thank God, God puts people in your life that just help you. And, Aaron and Todd were great for me in that podcast we did. There was nights on Sunday nights I didn't want to do it. And I was just like, oh God, I just want to go to bed. But I will tell you that they were the best, emotional, recovery for me that I had. And I was just going through a lot of tough things at the time. And it is so important to have those people in your life that are going to pick you up. I think about family. I remember my son would just get razzed all the time about your dad's an ass, And I told my son, I go, hey, tell those kids in response, at least you don't have to live with them. and that gave him a little bit of an out. And I always felt bad about that. And the last thing I'll just mention is just like, I think one of the toughest jobs that we have as leaders, and it kind of goes back to Brian, what you said, is that the toughest job we have is holding people accountable without having them resent us, which is really hard. So I really, that resonated with me on that 80-20. If you can get 80% of your people on your side, and you always gonna have to work to get that 20. But that was a great topic, Mark, and really good for me to hear today. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Joey, you want to wrap it up here?
All right. Well, I'll do my best. Great stuff here. Good conversations from everybody. I love the part that Aaron talked about with your circle tightens. You don't have nearly as many people when you get into that leadership position. It tightens when you become a coach. It tightens when you become an AD. So now the number of people that you have in your corner gets a little smaller. So you really have to strengthen those relationships the best that you can so that you have that support within your circle. Not that everybody outside of the circle is your enemy. That's not the case at all. It's just that you can't be as forthcoming with them as you'd like to be. There are times when there are student issues involved that you just can't tell the coaches and the parents and all of the people involved in the programs exactly what's happening and what's going on, because there are things that that you can't tell them, and they don't understand that. So a lot of times they don't get it. Mark, when you talked about not being able to defend yourself, that is so true because of that reason. You just can't talk about those things. Brian, you mentioned your identity. That's great. This is not who you are, it's what you do. And you have to be able to separate personal and professional and keep them that way. And hopefully other people will respect those boundaries as well. Great stuff, guys. Good discussion.
Thanks, Joey. Just to pile on that circle concept, I had a person tell me once, you're out there as a teacher and the world is, you're good, and then maybe you become a coach and the world becomes a little smaller. And then when you become a leader, like an athletic director, you're on an island. You're not on an island by yourself, but you're on an island, and you can't let everyone come on the island because you can't give out certain information according to, legal descriptions in privacy laws. And so you have to keep that in mind, that's a little bit of a cost too to leadership.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you everybody for your comments, and have a great week. Make it a great day or not. The choice is yours.